The silence in our new old house was the first tenant, and it was a hostile one. It wasn't an empty silence, but a thick, velvety quiet that seemed to swallow sound whole, a presence that listened from the corners of every room, pressing against the windows at night like a blanket smothering the world outside. Leo and I, 12 years old and stranded in the stagnant canal of a rain-soaked summer vacation, felt that silence eating away at us. We were city kids, transplanted to this sprawling, creaking Victorian at the edge of a town that rolled up its sidewalks by dusk, and the absence of constant noise was a phantom limb we couldn't stop itching. Our parents, busy unpacking a lifetime of memories into a house that didn't want them, were oblivious, their voices hushed and serious in another part of the ever-settling structure. Boredom, that fertile ground for all bad ideas, took root. We needed a distraction, a thrill, something to puncture the oppressive calm. And that's how we decided to go digging for ghosts in the one place the silence seemed most concentrated: the attic. The pull-down ladder groaned a protest as we unfolded it, a long, rasping shriek that echoed through the empty upstairs hall, and the air that tumbled down was cold and carried the scent of aged cedar, dust, and something else, something dry and faintly sweet, like forgotten flowers pressed in a book. We climbed into the gloom, our flashlight beams cutting shaky paths through the murk, illuminating shrouded furniture that stood like sleeping giants and stacks of cardboard boxes labeled with the cryptic handwriting of strangers. It was Leo who found it, tucked not in a box but leaning against the chimney breast as if waiting for us. A simple square of aged wood, its surface smooth and dark with time. The alphabet was carved and burned into it, the numbers lining the bottom, and the words goodbye and hello at the top and bottom looked less like greetings and more like stark, binary options. The planchette was a different matter altogether. It was a heavy, clouded piece of glass, oval-shaped and cool to the touch, and when I picked it up, it seemed to drink the warmth from my fingers instantly. This was no toy. It felt like a tool, a relic, and that should have been our first warning. But to us, it was a discovery, a key to a door we were too young to know should remain locked. We carved our own board out of a cardboard box with a black marker, a cheap, modern imitation, but we used the glass planchette, its weight feeling alien and authoritative on the flimsy paper. We sat cross-legged on the dusty floorboards, the single grimy window casting a sickly yellow light on our proceedings, and we put our fingertips on the cool glass. We started with giggles, with mock-serious questions. Is anyone there? Any ghosts want to play? The planchette was still. Is this house haunted? Nothing. The silence of the attic felt deeper now, a held breath. We were about to give up, to dismiss it as another failed summer experiment, when Leo, his voice dropping its playful edge and becoming unervingly small, asked the question that changed everything. Did you see what happened to the little girl? The effect was immediate and electric. The planchette didn't just move. It shot from the center of the board to the word yes with such violent speed that it tore a ragged gash through the cardboard. The sound was a shriek in the quiet. We both snatched our hands back as if burned, our hearts jackhammering against our ribs. You pushed it, I accused, my voice trembling. I didn't. You did. Leo shot back, but his face was pale, his eyes wide with a fear I knew mirrored my own. The denial was a flimsy shield, because we had both felt it. A cold, undeniable pull, an intelligence that was not ours guiding that heavy glass. We shoved the board away, scrambled down the ladder, and didn't speak of it for the rest of the day, but the door had been cracked open. The changes started subtly. It began with the whispers, not audible sounds that reached my ears, but thoughts that weren't my own, appearing in the back of my mind like a faint radio signal from a distant station. I'd be brushing my teeth, staring at my reflection, and I'd catch a thread of a word, alone or a sense of cold. Then the shadows in the long second-floor hallway began to feel different. They had a weight, a density that seemed unnatural. Walking to my bedroom at night, the patch of darkness outside the bathroom door felt solid, as if I could reach out and touch its velvety blackness, and I started to hurry past, my skin crawling. The final, most terrifying routine was the waking. Every night, without fail, my eyes would snap open at 3:07 a.m. Not 3:05, not 3:10, but 3:07 precisely. I'd lie there, my body rigid, my breath caught in my throat, and my gaze would be irresistibly drawn to my bedroom door, which I always, without fail, closed and latched before sleep. And every night at 3:07 a.m., it would be standing open, just a crack, a sliver of deeper darkness from the unlit hall beyond. One night, the terror mutated into a desperate, clawing curiosity. The fear was so constant it had become a part of me, and I was tired of it. So when my eyes opened at that cursed hour and I saw the familiar inch of open doorway, I didn't just lie there. I swung my legs out of bed, the wooden floor icy against my bare feet, and I walked to the door. My heart was a frantic drum in my chest, so loud I was sure it would wake the whole house. I pressed my eye to the crack, and I saw her. Down at the far end of the hall, standing at the top of the staircase, was a small, faintly glowing figure of a little girl. She had her back to me, and she was just standing there. The profound, aching loneliness that radiated from her was a physical force, a wave of sadness that washed over me and made my eyes sting with tears. The fear was still there, but it was now mixed with a heartbreaking pity. Without thinking, driven by an impulse I still don't understand, I pushed the door. The creak of the hinges was obscenely loud in the absolute silence. "I see you," I whispered, my voice cracking. She began to turn. It was a slow, deliberate motion, and my breath hitched, a fragile hope blooming in my chest that I could communicate, that I could help this lost soul find peace. But when she fully faced me, that hope shattered into a million pieces of pure, unadulterated horror. Where her face should have been was a smooth, blank, uninterrupted expanse of skin. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, just a pale, featureless oval. And from that terrifying emptiness, the faint whisper in my mind coalesced into a single, crystal-clear sentence that echoed as if spoken in a vast, empty chamber. "Now I don't have to just watch." The thing that looked like a little girl didn't run or float. It lunged. It moved up the hallway with a horrifying, skittering gait, its form seeming to flow and distort like liquid shadow, swallowing the space between us in a heartbeat. I screamed and slammed the door, throwing my weight against it, fumbling with a wooden chair to jam under the knob. From the other side, I didn't hear pounding or knocking. I heard scratching, long, slow, deliberate scratches, like something with impossibly hard, sharp nails was patiently, methodically carving its way through the solid oak. I spent the rest of the night huddled against the door, trembling, listening to that awful, relentless sound. The next morning, in the brave light of day, there were 3 deep, parallel gouges etched into the outside of my bedroom door. But when I pointed them out to Leo and my parents, they all frowned and shook their heads. "It's just the grain of the old wood, honey," my mom said, running her hand over the marks she genuinely couldn't see. "You're letting your imagination run wild." That was the moment I realized I was truly alone in this. Now, the thing doesn't just stay in the hall. It sits on the end of my bed every night, a faceless silhouette in the dark, a deeper blackness against the gloom. The whispers in my mind are no longer indistinct. They are a running commentary on my life, my thoughts, my fears. It critiques my day, it mocks my friendships, it revels in my anxieties. And last night, as it sat there, the whisper was different, more focused, more intimate. Soon, it breathed into the heart of my mind. "I won't need your eyes to see." As the words formed, I felt a distinct, sickening popping sensation deep behind my own eyes, a pressure that gave way to a sudden, void-like emptiness. For a single, terrifying second, my vision went completely, blissfully blank. The darkness was absolute. Then sight rushed back, but it was different, tinged with a faint, ghostly afterimage of that featureless face. I knew then, with a certainty that has frozen my soul, that the entity was never a ghost trapped in the house. It was a parasite on perception itself, a consciousness that fed on awareness. By acknowledging it, by seeing it, I had given it the only key it needed to start unwriting me from my own body, to begin the slow, meticulous process of etching itself into the space where I used to be. And the final whisper I heard, as I felt my own sight flicker like a dying bulb, was a thank you. a grateful, horribly hungry sigh for the gift of a witness, for the vessel it had been waiting for in the long, silent decades before we foolishly asked our question in the dust-filled attic. We did it in Sarah's basement for a dare, a group of 4 teenagers fueled by cheap beer and a false sense of immortality. The board was an ancient one her psychic grandmother had left behind, all intricate designs and a worn wooden planchette that felt like bone, and we were laughing, making jokes, asking if any spirits wanted a beer, the atmosphere light and mocking until Mark, always the provocateur, put his fingers on the planchette and said, "Give us a sign right now or we're done with this." And immediately, the floor lamp in the corner flickered and died, plunging us into darkness lit only by the weak glow of our phone screens, and our laughter died in our throats, a cold dread sweeping through the room, and the planchette under our fingers began to move, slow and deliberate, to the letter G, then to I, then to V, spelling Devi, and Sarah, her voice trembling, asked, "Give what?" And the planchette moved again, I to do a me, and a chill colder than the basement air wrapped around us, and Mark, trying to regain control, snapped, "Give you what?" And the planchette spelled out Wayuarwis, and we all ripped our hands away, scrambling backwards, a collective panic setting in, and that's when we heard the first whisper, a dry, rustling sound like pages turning, coming from the corner where the old furnace was, and we fled upstairs, locking the basement door behind us, trying to convince ourselves it was a prank, a collective hallucination. But the whispers followed Mark home. He told me the next day he could hear them in his walls, a constant, sibilant hiss asking for his eyes, and then the accidents started, not major ones, but a series of near misses. A car almost hitting him, a scaffolding plank falling just feet away, each preceded by a frantic whisper only he could hear, and his behavior changed. He became paranoid, jumpy, his eyes constantly darting around as if trying to see the source of the sound. And a week after the session, he didn't show up for school, and we found out he'd been in an accident. He'd fallen down his stairs at home, and the doctors said he'd be okay, but he'd lost his sight. The impact had detached both retinas, a 1 in a million tragedy, and when Sarah and I went to visit him in the hospital, his eyes were bandaged, and he was calm, too calm, and he told us the whispers had stopped, that it was finally quiet and he seemed at peace. But as we were leaving, he turned his bandaged head towards me and said, "It doesn't need your eyes anymore, it got what it wanted from me." And he smiled, a thin, bloodless smile. "But it's still hungry, and it likes the sound of your voice." And that night, as I tried to sleep, I heard it for the first time, not a whisper, but a clear, dry voice right by my ear, and it said, "Your tongue will do." And the fear that seized me was so complete, so visceral, it felt like my heart had turned to ice in my chest. And since then, the voice has been my constant companion. It no longer asks, it simply describes what it will do. The specific way it will savor the texture of my tongue, the sound I will make when it tears it from my mouth, and it's changing how I speak. I find myself stumbling over words, my voice becoming hoarse and unreliable, as if my own body is preparing for the inevitable violation. And I've become terrified of sharp objects, of anything that could be used as a tool. I eat only soft foods. I avoid speaking whenever possible, communicating with nods and gestures that make my friends think I'm having a breakdown, and maybe I am, but it's a breakdown being orchestrated by something I cannot see. A presence that feels like a cold hand constantly hovering near my jaw, and last night, in a moment of desperate, lucid clarity, I understood the true horror. This thing, this whisperer, it doesn't just want a physical part of me. It feeds on the anticipation. It gorges on the terror that builds in the long, slow days before the payment is collected, and the price is never negotiated. It is merely stated, and now I wait every moment of every day for the final, wet silence, knowing that the thing that took Mark's sight is now in the room with me, patient and relentless, its desire focused on the very thing I am using to tell this story. A story that is both a warning and a confession that I am already, in every way that matters, lost. The grief was a physical entity, a leaden weight in my chest that made every breath a conscious effort, a hollowed-out silence in our apartment that screamed Maya's absence. 6 months since the aneurysm, 6 months since the world lost all its color, and in the depths of that despair, rationality became a distant memory. I was a drowning man, and I would have clutched at any straw, even one dipped in hellfire. That's how I found myself in a toy store, buying a flimsy Ouija board, the kind meant for sleepover scares, its glossy surface and plastic planchette a mockery of the profound darkness I was seeking to pierce. I waited for midnight, sitting on the floor of the living room we had painted together, the only light coming from a single candle whose flame danced nervously in the still air. My fingers, cold and trembling, rested on the heart-shaped planchette. "Maya," I whispered, my voice raw. "Are you there? Please, I need you. I can't do this alone." For an hour, there was nothing but the hum of the refrigerator, a sound that had become the soundtrack to my loneliness, and the choked sound of my own sobs. I was a fool, a broken man talking to a piece of plastic. I was about to sweep the whole pathetic setup into the trash when I felt it. A tiny, almost imperceptible twitch beneath my fingertips, a vibration that was not my own. My heart leaped into my throat. The planchette then began to move, slow and aching, as if pushing through molasses, until it came to rest with definitive certainty on yes. A wave of such intense, painful relief washed over me I thought I might pass out, tears now flowing freely, but these were tears of a shattered joy. "Are you okay? Are you in pain?" It slid with that same heartbreaking slowness to an "Oh. Do you miss me?" It moved to yes, and I could feel her essence, her gentle, cautious nature in the deliberate, hesitant movements. We communicated like that for what felt like an eternity, a sacred, stolen moment across an impossible divide. My yes or no questions met with simple, loving responses that filled the hollow in my soul with a desperate, beautiful light. Emboldened by this connection, drunk on a hope I had forgotten could exist, I grew reckless. "Can you spell something for me? A message? Please, just one word." The planchette hesitated, hovering in the center of the board, and then it began to move, not slow anymore, but with a growing, confident purpose. "IMNOTALONE." The air in the room changed instantly, the comforting presence I had felt curdling into something watchful, predatory, the candle flame guttering violently. My blood turned to ice water in my veins. The planchette didn't stop. HEISHERETOO. I tried to pull my fingers away, to break this new, terrifying connection, but they were locked in place, held by an invisible, crushing force. The planchette dragged my hand now, spelling faster, a frantic, angry scrawl across the board. HELIKESYOURPAIN. HELIKESTHEWAYYOUCRY. I was sobbing, yanking my arm back with all my might, until finally, with a painful snap of released tension, my hand broke free. I kicked the board away, sending it skittering under the sofa, and scrambled backwards into a corner, hugging my knees to my chest, a terrified child. And then I heard it. From the bedroom, our bedroom, came the sound of Maya's soft, gentle laugh, a sound I ached for every night. But it was wrong, corrupted, layered with a deeper, masculine chuckle that rumbled underneath it, a horrible, mocking duet that made my stomach clench. The bedroom door began to swing slowly open, and in the shadows cast by the flickering candle, I saw them. Two forms moving against the far wall, one slender and familiar, the other tall and impossibly broad, their silhouettes merging and separating in a grotesque, intimate dance. The male voice, smooth as oil and cold as a grave, spoke aloud, its vibration felt in my bones. "She's not yours anymore," it said, a smirk audible in its tone. "But don't worry, you can stay and watch." And now I do. I live in this apartment with them, with the thing that wears Maya's voice like a ill-fitting skin and its hungry, possessive companion. They don't hurt me physically. They don't need to. Their presence is the torture. They sit on our couch, the male thing's shadowy arm draped around the imitation of my fiancé. They whisper in the kitchen, and at night, I hear them in our bed, the sounds of profane desecration of every beautiful memory we made there. The worst part, the part that shatters my soul anew every day, is that sometimes, in a rare, quiet moment when the male entity's attention wanes, I hear her, Maya's true voice, a faint, terrified whisper from a soul in torment, and she says, "I'm so sorry, my love. I told you not to call for me." And in those moments, I understand the full, horrific scope of my sin. I didn't just reach into the void. I tore a hole, and something on the other side was holding her captive, and my desperate, selfish call didn't rescue her. It only gave the thing that chains her a permanent doorway into my world, an anchor point built from my own grief. Now we are both prisoners here, eternal spectators in a nightmare. Maya is a specter forced to perform a cruel pantomime of her former life for her captor, and I am the audience, the sole, tormented witness to this eternal, profane play staged in the home we built with love. The male entity savors my anguish. It feeds on the shattered pieces of my devotion, and it forces her to use our most precious, private memories as weapons to deepen my despair. I cannot leave, for how could I abandon her when a shred of her true self remains, screaming silently from behind a facade controlled by a monster I invited in? Last night, the male thing looked directly at me, not as a shadow, but with a cold, tangible certainty that froze the air in the room, and it said, "You called for one, but you got a package deal." And it smiled a wide, terrible smile using Maya's stolen lips. "And the lease, my grieving friend, is forever."